A myth debunked. New study confirms low detransition rate among transgender youth. A groundbreaking study published in the JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, has revealed that the vast majority of transgender youth continue with gender-affirming care even after several years of transitioning. This study analyzed the experiences of 220 transgender youth who had been transitioning for at least 5 years. Conducted through Princeton University's TransYouth project, the research debunks misinformation concerns raised by anti-trans advocates who claim that many transgender youth would detransition later in life. It is important to note that only 4% of the participants reported detransitioning at any point, while a staggering 97% continued their gender-affirming care. Of the 220 youth, just 9 expressed any form of regret. But this did not necessarily reflect a change in their gender identity. In fact, knee replacement surgeries have a higher regret rate, which is 20%. Furthermore, a secondary group of 49 youth representing those lost in follow-ups showed 94% satisfaction with their transition, suggesting a minimal bias in the data. Experts emphasize that this research confirms what many in the trans community said they already knew: high satisfaction rates and low regret surrounding gender-affirming care for youth. So science, love science, love polls, love taking polls, obviously. But I love when you can back a statement with proof and evidence and research. People on the other side of the fence are just saying blanket statements that aren't based in any sort of truth or study or anything. It is just based off their beliefs. On this side of the fence, we're doing studies. And I'm sure this was conducted by people who were not biased, who just wanted the facts.
Girl,
Princeton, wherever you are, you did an incredible job. But people who had an unbiased goal with this study found legitimate results. And it turns out people on the other side of the fence are dumb as hell. They don't be know what they talking about. People who transition are fine for the most part. And if they do decide to detransition or retransition, which is another term that I learned recently, that's on them. But nothing is being thrusted upon people, especially the youth, to transition for trends, for TikTok. That don't make no sense, and it's not true. And here's the proof.
Yeah, and it's important that we get this story out there, because what the right does so well is make totally wild, false claims, and they get on top of the narrative totally without support, without facts. Yeah. And now we've got facts, so it's time that we get on top of this narrative and we say, hey, no, this is what's really happening. You don't have the right to misrepresent our community.
Completely. And we need more data like this. We do. That's the thing, that people aren't using their money to help data that would help our community, right? And this data helps our community. The CDC says it. The AMA says it. You know, listen to science, right? Science says that gender-affirming care helps LGBTQ plus kids not want to kill themselves, okay? There. Really quick statement, right? That encompasses really what these kids are going through, right? 4%, like that's so staggering. You know, I know a lot of trans people, and I've yet to meet somebody that has detransitioned yet. You know, again, there's exceptions to every rule.
Exactly.
And they're stupid people, right? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But for the most part, 96% of that data states that people were happier in the bodies that they were meant to be, living their true, authentic selves. Larry, what do you think?
I completely agree, and I think that the right wing is out of control. We've seen it many times before. We recently did a story here at Queer News last week, where they were talking about the gentleman who was on The Bachelor and later said, it was just a social experiment. I'm not really trans. I mean, it's criminal. Yes. And, we really need to take a hard look. These people portray themselves as, strong God dedicated people. And then they treat their fellow men and women and communities the way they do, and it's just wrong.
Yeah, and the right wing takes advantage of it.
Absolutely.
They will take that person, that detransition, and put them on a pedestal and pay them money and have them do PSAs, and all of a sudden, people that don't know trans people, or they think they don't know trans people, just in case, all right? Yeah. Then they get this false information.
Absolutely, and I think that the biggest thing that we can do as a community to keep on doing outreach, speaking at schools. I mean, one of the greatest experiences I had before coming down to Florida 5 years ago was I was part of New Jersey Speakers Bureau. And one of the greatest things that I saw in the trans community is I had been on the Speakers Bureau for several years. as a gay lesbian panel, and we finally got a great trans speaker who worked for the government of New Jersey.
I love
And the students at William Patterson University were more interested in what Susan, I believe was her name, had to say. And we were like, oh yeah, we know about you gay men and women. We want to hear about the trans experience in this person's life. And it was wonderful. And she represented very well, and you know, we were all sitting there saying, give us some time, you know.
I love that. No, I know.
So I was very happy for her.
I love
yeah.
that, but it's time.
Yes.
Larry, you understand?
The
The time is way overdue. If you're on an
Absolutely.
advisory board and the T is not represented, your advisory board does not represent our community.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And no, and it was great that the students had an interest, and it was very unbiased. It was a nice interaction, and that showed a lot of progress. And that was 5 years ago.
I love that.
But we need that down here in
We need
Florida.
that, and we need that more and more.
Absolutely.